Hello everyone, on today's webinar, Integrated Risk Management. Today we don't give you a magic bullet for risk assessments. We will speak about tools such as Polarion and Nextedy RISKSHEET, which definitely help to organize your work, but the expertise, the insights come from you. What we will do today, we will break some silos, because when the silos break, the data become more visible, which is better for the decisions, better for the quality. And that's what we hope we'll do today. My name is Jiří Walek. I'm a co-founder and principal consultant at Nextedy. I was a VP of product management at Polarion, so I spent the last 20 years deeply connected with the Polarion customer base and the industries. And the agenda for today is really that we will speak a bit about the risk management today, how we see the situation on the market today. We will introduce, for those who are not familiar with that, the Polarion holistic approach and also our Nextedy RISKSHEET solution. But we spent most of the time with actually helping you how to get to the next level. And I hope that at the end, you'll raise some questions that I'll try to answer. Nextedy Systems is not new on the market. We are on the market since 2018. We have customers around the globe. So some of the data that I present are based on our, research studies that we were running through the last couple of years with enterprise companies around the globe: Johnson & Johnson, Samsung, Rolls-Royce, Scania. And if you ask me why we speak today about risks, about risk management, and why it matters to the Polarion community, I think it's because the Polarion is well known as a kind of the best breed solution for requirements management. And if you check the studies, you will find out that for the industries that matter, such as automotive or med device manufacturers, between 60 to 80% of system requirements are driven directly by the risk management processes. This is really shows the very tight relationship between risk management, functional safety or cybersecurity, and requirements management. And the thing is that if you ask what is the #1 risk management tool, we probably interviewed 200 different clients around the globe. The answer is Excel. There are exceptions, which usually mean that they are not integrated with the rest of the process. But even if you think about the Excel, I mean, you'll probably agree that the biggest problem with Excel is that the line, the raw in the sheet is not traceable at all. But even if you forget about that particular topic, there are common issues that we have identified with the market. First one is that within the organization, everyone is doing things differently. Different departments, different units, different teams are using a different templates. This makes it really hard to leverage the expertise across the different units or teams, which also place the redundant effort on regulations and compliance. But I think that there is even more critical problem. And the critical problem is the risk management silo as itself, which, let's say, leads into fragmented communication, delays, wasted time that the people need to, let's say, search different platforms. Let's see what control measure exists in my requirements management system, or even worse, compromised data integrity, that the requirements as the measures in the risk management solutions are not well synchronized with the requirements in the requirements management solution, which really result into isolated collaboration. And I think that's why we are here today speaking about the so-called integrated risk management solution. Why to do it in Polarion? It's not just about why Nextedy RISKSHEET is the best tool on the planet. It's more like, what is the benefit of doing it together with the other disciplines in a one system? And for that, we have actually recognized Polarion as a really strong engineering platform. So as a platform that makes it possible to manage different disciplines. I would say that with a different depth of support in the platform. If you check the requirements management, I'm sure that this is really the best of breed solution in the world. If you speak about tests and verifications, the Polarion is also quite strong in that area. But what we use Polarion for, we use it as a data platform, a very strong and robust data platform, which enables you a streamlined collaboration, managed collaboration, which makes sure that the data are connected together. So as a traceability environment where we can really trace data together, report across of them, and also that facilitates the reuse. So for us, we have a chance to build our risk management solution directly on top of Polarion platform, which now help us to really connect the processes together very tightly without any data synchronization. And what we think we make our solution really great is that we make it highly interactive and we focus to make it user friendly. And of course, it needs to be, let's say, aligned with many different standards coming from different regulations, ISO 14971, 9001, FMEAs, HARAs, TARAs. But I already spoke about, stay a while in the PowerPoint. Let's go and open Polarion with our risk sheet, and let's just introduce how it looks and work in the Polarion system. So now I'll switch to Polarion. It's our demo server. I've prepared a couple of the samples, which documents how you can structure and manage risk-related data in Polarion. So as I said, Polarion is a platform that allows you to structure the data the way you like. In this particular project, we have the system elements, which describes the system tree. We have the system requirements and system test cases, the same for design level on the software level. We manage releases, test cases, unit test cases. And in addition to those work item types, we have here a work item called risk. This is a very basic environment which was configured for the FMEA type of the risk functional safety assessment. And it also shows a very straightforward data model in Polarion. I have just a risk object with effects, severity rankings. The risk object has a upstream link to a system element. So I see to which, let's say, system element I'm connected, and also downstream measures like which requirements are the output of my risk process. So what should I do to improve the impact or the likelihood of the potential problem? And you are capable of structuring the data like that without any additional tools. You can just go to your Polarion system and set the data model. But as I said, what is crucial is whenever you are deploying a new process or whenever you are introducing a change to ensure that you get the acceptance from the end users. And as I said also, I mean, that we see that many of users using Excel, what we did is that we combine, let's say, the benefits of both worlds. The collaboration platform of Polarion, baselining, traceability, etc., with the look and feel and interactive capabilities of an Excel. So here we have the FMEA sheet, which is tightly connected to my Polarion data, or not just tightly, it's all the data we see on the screen are stored in the work items. I can actually use it as an Excel. I can filter, I can search, but also I can just copy and paste, add new causes. I can copy and paste. I can just pick the drop downs and select the actual classified data as I need. I can trigger new requirements. So I can work with this interface as I'm used to work with Excel, but under the hood, automatically, the system creates the underlying entities. We see that we created a new risk object, which is connected automatically to the risk element, which system element, which was already there. And there is also the underlying the system requirement as a measure connected to my risk element. So what I'm showing you now is the core principle of our approach, what we do on top of Polarion. We define a data model, which this one is really simple and basic, and we apply the Excel interface, which makes the user work in a familiar approach as before, but benefit from the other capabilities of Polarion that we will cover later today in the webinar. And it doesn't need to be only FMEA. We can switch to another example, which is harms and hazards analysis, very known in the device manufacturing industry, where instead of looking on the risk assets from the perspective of FMEA, here we have a look on it from the perspective of hazards and harms. So I have a particular hazard exposure to contaminates. I have some sequence of event. I can, let's say, add a new event. I can define what is the actual impact. So the impact could be minor organ damage. So I just search for the minor organ damage, and it could be also burns. We see that a system also allows me to assess the probabilities of the situations to happen and the harm to happen. The risk records are automatically calculated, something what you would be probably able to do in Excel anyway. But the beauty is that when I save it, again, the data are stored automatically in Polarion as work items, as traceable assets. And we'll speak later why it makes sense to actually store data in Polarion. So in this moment, what is important is that from the user point of view, the way the user work shall be as much similar as to the way how they work today, but the data are integrated into the Polarion platform. And we spoke that today we'll not speak only about the, let's say, functional safety, but also cybersecurity risks. So the same applies not only to risks that are related to functional safety, but could be related also to the risks which are cybersecurity oriented. What does it really mean? That I can have a different risk records. One which is, let's say, functional safety oriented, based on HARA, TARA, based on FMEAs, whatever. And then I have the cybersecurity risks, which may be, or that are processed with a very different processes or methods. So in this case, we see that we have the similar Excel interface, but instead of speaking about hazards or failure modes and impacts on the actual health, here we have the sheet, which is based on the so-called CVSS standard, which is a scoring system for assessing potential cybersecurity risks, which are related to threats, and the threats are then classified. And we see that the process might be really complex. In this case, the standard defines you to assess, let's say, the different scoring based on the different principles, you can import such a data into Polarion automatically from some third-party systems, or classify the data directly in Polarion. And this is really the benefit of our Excel-like interface, with an option also to reduce the complexity of this sheet, so I can just reduce the number of columns per different role, per different use case. So when I'm submitting my let's say output to my document management system, I can have a dedicated view just for submission, export it to Excel, export it to PDF, and make sure that only the relevant information gets exported. For example, the attack vectors shall not be, let's say, visible to everyone, etc. So just as an introduction, what we have seen so far, we have seen that we have a very flexible product, which is mostly being used to manage the risk management assets, such as functional safety or cybersecurity risks. We do everything on top of Polarion, so it means all the data are in Polarion, which also means that we don't introduce any other protocol from data security point of view. We rely 100% on Polarion. We don't introduce any other database. Once you have the Polarion up and running, the installation of the RISKSHEET is trivial. But what it also means is that we don't provide the template, or we provide the boilerplates how to start with FMEAs, with HARAs, TARAs. But what we have seen on the market is that every client is doing the things a bit different. And one of the key benefits of our approach is that you can still adjust the interfaces based on your process variants. But I told you today that where I want to spend most of the time is actually to think a bit about how do we get there. So how do we make it happen that you can start deploying such a process in your organization? What does it take to get there? What are the different maturity levels? How to adopt Polarion with Nextedy RISKSHEET for risk management? So the first level we see is just please avoid using Excel. This just with the very basic process, which is represented that one line in Excel equals risk record, immediately brings the benefit of the integrated risk and requirements management solution, and it can help with the harmonization across departments. And for that, we have a very straightforward offer. If you are using Excel, just give us your Excel template. We convert it into a basic Polarion data model, free of charge. This as an impact would result into ability to have all the data in Polarion, start managing the data in connection with the other assets. So for example, the control measures becomes the requirements as they are in Polarion. And the things what you need to do is just probably to have the Polarion administrator in-house to apply the configurations to production, to fine-tune some workflows, because let's say you know that in Polarion a lot of stuff is about the workflow. And what we see on the based on the previous engagements with the clients is that it's great to have the internal advocate to push such a solution through, because every change becomes an effort. But the great thing is that at least from the cost perspective, we really recommend to start that simple. Give us your Excel, be converted free of charge, and as an output, you will really see a data very similar to what we have prepared in this very basic example. That in this example, we have the risk records. Each risk record is a work item in Polarion. What does it really mean that even if we see here, for example, that there is a failure mode, like intermittent release of H2S, there is no object which represent the failure mode. This is all content-based. So we have here the title, which stores what is the failure mode. So 3H2O and 540 has the same failure mode just by the text. So the first Excel-based approach means we take your sheet, we convert it into the basic columns like properties in Polarion, the properties of the risk records, and we connect it to the input and output of the objects, which still means that whenever I create a new mitigation, this is my new measure, might be in this case a new software requirement which is directly tracked in Polarion as a software requirement. So it's already integrated discipline. Level 2, once we really have such a basic data model in Polarion, we start speaking and thinking about so-called catalogs and structures. The goal for that step is just to scale up your risk management process for something which works well across multiple Polarion projects, which makes it also faster for the user to benefit just from some sort of automations. What do we mean by catalogs and structures? We have seen that in this FMEA, everything was just a basic, more or less text or enumeration. Once we start speaking about the catalogs, this is probably well visible in this harms and hazards analysis, where we see that some of the columns here on the screen are not just texts, it's an actual object. So when we open here the hazard item is a work item, which actually comes from the catalog of standard hazards and catalog of standard harms. So we can start building a data model, which is not only about the risk record, but where you have multiple different additional data types or work item types, hazards, harms in this particular case, which doesn't mean that from the user perspective, it becomes more complex. Because as we have seen before, I've created here this new event with this harm, and on the backend, we have automatically created a work item of type risk record again, but this risk record is automatically traced to the harm, minor organ damage, and to the hazard, chemical exposure to contaminants. So by introducing the catalogs, it doesn't make the user interface more complex or the user procedure less clear. They still work in an Excel, but the data becomes more granular. Why it matters? Because suddenly you can really benefit also from the traceability. So you immediately see what are all the risks related to the exposure to the contaminants. But I think that the value of the catalogs becomes more important once we start speaking about reuse, which will come on in the level 3. If we check the cybersecurity analysis, and we go here to the Stride cybersecurity-based approach, here we see something similar. Here we see that, again, we have a particular risk records. The risk records are connected to the, let's say, signals somehow, but where we speak about the catalogs and structures is that the threat is no longer just a text. It's not just a text in my Excel. The threat, again, is an object. I can understand where exactly, let's say, a particular threat can happen. I mean, on what signals, in what context, in which variants. So I may later have a foundation for data-driven decisions. I may understand which components should be improved, not just because of individual risks being unacceptable, but also due to the fact that maybe a lot of also acceptable risks are associated with a given threat. So we see that we allow to build these Excel-like interfaces, not just connected with one object, but really connect a sheet with a graph of objects to build a full traceability across my risk discipline. Here, we typically propose is that first we have a meeting where we agree on the data model, what is being shared, and especially why. Because sometimes, let's say we see that the customers wants everything to become a work item, but when you ask them why, it's a little bit unclear. So we tend to keep the thing simple. It's also important to understand how do you structure your data per system, per component, per version. So on which level you perform your risk analysis, because this is also different client to client. And based on that, we can again help free of charge to build the POC environment. POC environment where we already see the data model with the assets that we agreed on. We want to, let's say, have a clause in FMEA to be a reusable asset, not just a text in a sheet. And you can have it up and running in a week. In this case, with the what we see is that we already recommend to have the representative of actual users involved since the beginning, because it may mean that we are starting to change the way how the people were used to work. I give you one simple example, which is based, for example, on the HARA example. And this is, if I have here a harm, here is the severity. In an Excel, this column will be editable. In our case, we may happen, or we recommend to have it read-only, because the harm from the catalog is a shared object. And the people do not realize that if they would change the severity here, they would change it everywhere across all the different risk analyzed documents. It is possible to agree that we allow to change such a column. So we provide a solution that is extremely flexible and adjustable, but it's really important to sit with the clients and agree what is editable, what is not editable. Another thing about these assets means, can I add a new asset to the catalog? So if I type something which is not in the catalog, should it become part of the catalog? Is the catalog shared globally? Is this something which is which should be not automatically in the catalog, but in the context of my project? All these questions needs to be answered, and we provide a way how to configure it. So everything what we see is configurable not only by us, but also by our partners or by our customers. So in the beginning, we just give you a POC level of configuration, which you can later maintain by yourself, leverage the partners, your existing Polarion administrators, or outsource it to our services. On the same level as the catalogs and structures, I would say it's important to speak about the collaboration flows. The collaboration flows makes the process more robust, error prone, and this is also something which is very much derived from the Polarion capabilities itself. We will speak now about versioning and baselining, about access controls, regulatory exports. So everything where we start speaking about the collaboration. So we have all the data in Polarion. You know that everything in Polarion is under the version control management system, which means every modification creates a unique history record, associated with the subversion revision number. And you can also create the baselines from any moment. And we are aligned with those Polarion concepts. Not only that we can load a full sheet exactly as it was in any historical moment in time. In addition to that, we can actually also compare. And by compare, I mean we compare all the data. You need to understand it's not just one live dog. It's a graph of object. There can be a harm. If you go here and we open the harm and we would change the harm severity to critical here for bacterial infection. If you would actually now let me reload my page because we have changed the core. You see that we also compare all the objects that are on the screen. So here we see the complete comparison between the current version compared to this baseline number 1. We can compare against on any revision or compare to the any baseline, project baseline, document baseline. And not just that you can see this data in Polarion, you can also export that, which is really important for collaboration with other vendors, with other teams. So I can take the file and export it to Excel. Now I have the Excel file, which contains exactly only the differences between the current version and the previous version. If I want, I can export the full sheet with just highlighting what are the changes. I can export it, as I said, to Excel, or I can export to PDF. When I export to PDF, I get the very similar file, but just in a PDF with all the colors and formatting and data as they are configured in the risk sheet. So what we see here is that the concepts of Polarion, the baselining, the versioning, are applied not only to requirements, to test cases, to test runs, but now also on the risk objects. We immediately see whether there are not new risk control measures. Here we see that the new measure has been added in the context of one of my my risk records. This applies again without any configuration out of the box for any type of the process. So we open here the FMEA analysis. We have prepared some sample. We again see that one risk record was added. Here there was a change of a status of the system requirement. The new software requirement has been added. We see here there was a change in the occurrence rate from 6 to 4. We see that here the severity of occurrence was changed. Again, the status have been changed for one of the requirement. So everything is tracked under the version management system, and everything can be comparable. This is a great benefit of compared to using Microsoft Excel as well. It was almost impossible to get such a data without having the robust platform such as Polarion. What we have already also seen is that out of the box we provide, let's say, capabilities to export data to the document management system, to regulatory bodies, etc. Let's understand that the data are not just about, or the exports are not just about the data. So whenever you export, for example, to PDF, you can configure the cover page. You can configure some additional pages like the process documentation, the occurrence rating scale, detection rating scale. You can append the glossary based on the Polarion APIs. So what we do is that whenever we export the data, we make it possible to adjust the export protocols so you produce the let's see, documentation which is aligned to your let's say regulatory needs. So if you go back to the PowerPoint, on the level 2 collaboration flows, the lesson learned is that the best way how to leverage or get up to this level 2 here for the collaboration is to understand how the colleagues from the requirements management, let's see, process are doing it. What I'm saying is that usually there is already an approval process. Is the approval process based on the documents or items? There is already some sort of versioning or baselining schema. There are already some workflows, how the documents becomes approved, etc. Access controls. Applying the same flows to the risk management process is quite straightforward with the Polarion capabilities. Again, this impacts the way how the user work. So, I mean, not everyone might be really happy, and we see some, let's say, struggles with putting it into reality. The different groups have different expectations. So, if the goal is the harmonization across the organization, I mean, you again need to get some buy-in. But the good thing is that if it is already deployed in the context of requirements management, there's a very likely good chance that it can be accelerated for the risk management as well. Level 3, variance and reuse. So we get to the point where we have the integrated risk management. We have the harmonization across departments. We can scale it with some catalogs. We can scale it with the with defining the assets which are being shared, like the vulnerabilities or threats across different risk analysis. We can also make it more robust with these collaboration flows. Now we want to focus on how to manage the data if you have a product line, or if, let's say, you develop multiple different products which are similar, if not mostly the same, with just some variability. Let me mention that this is a little bit complex to present because everyone thinks different about reuse. I give you an example where I was speaking with a client and I was speaking about the reuse of risks. And the person was really shocked. What a silly idea is it to reuse a risk? Why would anyone would like to do it? Because finally there was a misconception that they were thinking that we are reintroducing the risk into a different product. By reuse in the context of risk management, we of course do not speak about reintroducing the same risk, but about leveraging the information that I've identified in some context in another context. If products are similar and the risk is potential in the product A, it might be potential also in the product B. If you have a shared component, the risk can be component-based and shared across multiple products. There is also the product line engineering approach with so-called 150% approach. And we do have a client who is using the Polarion with the pure system variance management approach applied on the requirements and extending it also to the risk assessments. So they really have a 150% specification of their potential risks, and for the given variant they generate the risk specification based on the feature model definition. If you apply the other approach with 80% approach, that you have the common risks and then in your product you can introduce new one, do you anyway introduce or merge the risk back into the catalogs? There are really many different questions. Again, the approach that works for us is it's very similar to requirements management. To the way how you reuse the requirements is very much similar to the way how you may leverage the risk assessments. And if there is an approach with variance management or 80% specifications, the same can be applied to the to risks. What does it really mean? It means that if you go here again into, for example, HARA, we open the Polarion artifact because everything would be present are the work items data, right, in Polarion. So we can also just easily branch it. So Polarion provides the concept for reuse based on duplication or based on branching. We don't have time much to dive into that topic, but just a quick thing, we can actually branch it. We create a variant B of our risk assessment. We can open it, and now we have a variant B, a branch of my requirements, where the requirements are being actually shared between the master document and my variant. I can, of course, extend them. So I can say, hey, there is another, in my context, there is another harm which can happen, or there can be completely new event. So if I follow the 80% approach where I share the common risks and I just extend it with the new one, I can just do it and I can save it, I can compare, I can baseline it. So it works really the same as with the standard Polarion requirement specification. The same applies to our, let's say, documents here. What is more important really is to think about what kind of the information you reuse. Do you really reuse the risk records with the classification? So is the probability the same in my product variance? Or do I just leverage the definition of the risk, but it should be reclassified in my context of another product? Do I also reuse the measures, or do I need to think about the measures from scratch? So here, this really depend on the way how you manage your product lines. The story from us today is that we have the best practices derived from different clients. We can be a partner. We can introduce a different Polarion concepts. But here, this really require a project scope for 6 to 12 months. It's not a trivial thing to have a well-thought risk management process. And we would advocate for a strong Polarion internal knowledge, either in-house or via partnership. Our experience is that really it pays back, but it's a project that needs to have a clear ownership on your side, and then find a partner, either us or a service partner that exists in your country, and dive deep into the reuse concept of Polarion. What we know is that it can be extended to risk management. Nextedy RISKSHEET is aligned with it, and we have customers that successfully did it in a full scale. The last but not least, I want to finish today before we go to the quick Q&A with model-based approach. So there is also, let's say, a goal to integrate some of the system modeling processes with Polarion and risk management discipline. Again, this is something which, if it exists on the level of the requirements management, it's easier to extend to risk management. And we have already seen an example today. This example was, for example, this stride analysis, where, I mean, the customer may import from MATLAB Simulink or from Enterprise Architect the different interfaces with different signals, where the signals goes across the trusted boundary. It has the origin and the destination, which the origin plays some there is a meaning of the system element within the signal, whether it's a data store or it's an interactor, etc. So this data can be actually imported from the system modeling solutions. You can identify when the signal goes through the trusted boundary, and this serves as an input for the analysis in Polarion. So once I have the data here, once I import the interfaces and the signals and the elements, I am just executing, like, in the context of this signal and this impacted element, like this security hub, what can happen? There can be a denial of service or elevation of privilege. What threat scenarios may lead to it? What is the impact? What is the difficulty to perform such a attack? What is the impact? How do I explain the impact? And again, this calculates the score, which results into different mitigations. In the mitigations, I can document new mitigation measures if I say that I want to mitigate it through the new safety requirements. So there is also a way how you can or you should connect your system model with Polarion, import the data, which helps not only for the requirements traceability, but also it gives a context, for example, for the cybersecurity risk assessments based on the STRIDE method. Or when we speak about FMEA, of course, I can technically manage the system tree in Polarion, but many of the clients are importing the system tree from the system modelers, and then when we open the FMEA, we can pick the system element directly from the list as it is in the system model. So we spoke today about breaking silos, integrating risk management into a holistic platform based on Polarion, based on our Nextedy solution called Nextedy RISKSHEET. We learn about, let's say, some of the benefits, why it matters to have it integrated, about the goals such as harmonization across departments, how to scale it with the catalogs, how to make it more robust with the, let's say, baselining and approvals, etc. Also, that it is possible to deploy the product line engineering approaches and branching, etc. We are ready to support you today. As I said and mentioned several times today, we can start easily just with basic free POCs. If you like what we presented today, please contact us on the website, schedule a call, and we can start a project right away.